All right, so apparently this video is about the stealthy wealthy, and I don't think they talking about the rappers with the gold teeth or the TikTokers flashing Lambos. Nah, they probably talking about your uncle who smell like diesel and don't trust Wi-Fi. So if in this video, I haven't watched it all the way through yet, I have only seen snippets. If in this video they talk about an old guy with overalls that has an 8-figure income, I might shed a patriotic tear. Here's Johnny the Blue Collar Cowboy back at you again with another top level video. Make sure you like, subscribe, click that notification bell so you get notified every time I put up some of this fire content. And today, we got the vlogs now, we got the poems, we got rolling rants, and now we have rolling reactions. Even though I'm not rolling right now, I'm in Atlanta. We're outside of Atlanta in McDonough, Georgia. And I came across this video, the stealthy wealthy, and who they are and how they make their money. And when I seen it, I seen little snippets of it, and I was like, you know what? This video actually gave me the idea for rolling reactions. So we're gonna hop right into it. I'm gonna react to it. And yeah, let's see what's going on.
Present, the median net worth for somebody in their 20s, it's under $8,000. But too often the perception of where and how to make the most money is media and personality influenced. In television, film, and music, we glamorize Wall Street and Silicon Valley, not middle America. But business ownership in any town USA is increasingly the foundation for our very highest wage earners. As Juliet Chung of the Wall Street Journal recently reported, behind a paycheck, the largest source of income for the 1% highest earners in the U.S. isn't being a partner at an investment bank or launching a one in a million tech startup. It's owning a medium-sized regional business.
There's a lot to unpack there, and he's basically talking about what I talked about on the last video. One, it's often glamorized online and on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. You got the 15-year-old that made multi-million dollars, and it makes people often feel like they're behind when you're not. The truth is, and on this channel I talk about the truth, I don't talk about the fluff. The truth is that 70% of Americans don't have $1,000 in their savings. I think it was 40 to 45% of Americans have noted that they wouldn't be able to cover $1,000 emergency if an emergency happened. That's the reality. The reality is that most people are in debt and don't even have a positive net worth or a net zero net worth. Most people are in debt. That myth needs to be, which I guess that somebody will be me, needs to let people know the reality of what all of this is. Everybody isn't balling, but there also is a good group of people that are, and that's who we're here to talk about today. And like he said, outside of a paycheck, the largest source of income for the 1% is the owners of medium-sized regional businesses. And I'm gonna let you guess what type of fields these regional and medium-sized businesses are in. Let's listen to them.
Many of them are distinctly boring and extremely lucrative, like auto dealerships, beverage distributors, grocery stores, dental practices, and law firms. That analysis was based on the work of Owen Zadar, a Princeton University economist, and Eric Zwick, an economist at the University of Chicago. Dr. Zadar will join me in just a moment. The two are soon to publish a book on this very subject. They studied anonymized tax data from 2000 to 2022. Their focus, S corporations and partnerships, typical of those were medium-sized businesses with annual sales of 20 million and 100 employees. Their findings built off a previous academic paper for which they were co-authors called Capitalists in the 21st Century. From that analysis, quote, our findings draw attention to a class of entrepreneurs hidden from public view, who prevail among top earners and whose human capital income is key for understanding top incomes.
My cousin and I were talking about this last night, and it's something that I see a lot. People have put a lot of praise on the LLC. You know, when people first learn business, they learn get an LLC, and that's good. And you should be proud because either way, you're taking a step towards prosperity. You're taking steps to learn. So I'll never put that down. I was one of those people at one time. Happy, got my LLC paperwork, happy, threw it up on the thing like, yeah, I started a business. You know what I'm saying? But the truth is LLCs definitely have their place in business, but LLCs are taxed as sole proprietorships. You don't get any real tax benefits from owning an LLC. S corps and C corps. We learned about the LLCs and that's good, but we want to get to the higher levels where we're learning to completely separate the business from us. Now, there's a certain revenue bracket when it comes to business where it doesn't make sense to get an S Corp or a C Corp yet. I do understand that also. But what he also stated was most of these entrepreneurs are in boring businesses. Boring businesses. And when for those of you who've been following me for a long time before the truck content, I was talking about finance. And the last thing I was talking about when I ended that phase of my YouTubing was buying businesses, acquisition entrepreneurship. Well, that was one of my last videos. It's also one of my most successful videos on here. And I think that is the one that I left up from my finance talking days. And so my whole goal this whole time, and still is, was to buy small to medium size boring businesses. So small businesses are considered anything below 20 million. That's another thing we have to change our mindset on, of what we consider small and big. Small is anything 20 million and under. That's considered a small business. That's why they started their research at businesses that are 20 million, that are around 20 million and have 100 employees, because that's around the mark where private equity companies start looking to invest in businesses. Anything under that, though, is free for the taker for people like you and me to invest in businesses, because private equity isn't necessarily looking for businesses around that time frame. So that's one of the big goals of this, is to buy small and medium size, to start and buy small to medium sized businesses. Let's keep it going.
The takeaway from both the prior and more recent analysis is that if we examine everyone in the United States and then focus on the top 10% of earners, for most, their main source of income is wages. But for the very top, those at the 0.1% level, it flips. And most of them are getting more of their income through profits from their businesses. Those businesses are typically not in finance, but rather they actively produce goods or services across diverse industries. Professors Zadar and Zwick, they gained access to data about who owns private jets and super yachts. And what do they find among the latter? Sure enough, dozens of auto dealers who live in random towns across America. This Wall Street Journal article also had examples of entrepreneurs who defy stereotypes and show that you can make money at anything in America as long as you do it right. There's Derek Olson, his Minnesota-based business, National Flooring Equipment. They make machines that rip up flooring. He makes millions due to the need for carpet removal at elementary schools in particular. They've got a lot of carpet and the kids make a lot of mess. Then there's David McNeil. He dropped out of college and sold cars. On a trip to Scotland, he noticed they had superior car floor mats. So he took out a second mortgage, shipped over a bunch of these mats to sell. In the first year, he made $40,000. 2 years later, he made 10 times that amount. Today, his Illinois-based company, WeatherTech, you've heard of them. They sell hundreds of millions in auto accessories. The point is, America is still the land of opportunity. In fact, it may be truer today than it was 25 years ago. The data show that business owners worth 10 million or higher have more than doubled in the past quarter century, even adjusting for inflation. Sure, it's true that 1/3 inherited their businesses, but most are self-made. And many of these now 1%ers did not grow up themselves in privileged homes. They're ambitious, they're smart, but nor did they graduate from the most prestigious schools. In fact, many didn't go to college at all.
So he said a lot there. One, we have to get rid of the victim mindset of they made it, so they must have did something dirty, or they must have inherited it, or it's like, no, you just haven't gotten there yet. I'm not a millionaire yet, and it's nobody's fault but mine. Why I'm not a millionaire. I could have educated myself more, I could have grinded harder, I could have not spent years bullshitting in the streets. Like, there's a lot I could have done to be in a better position right now. And I'm not in a bad position, but it's nobody's fault but mine that I'm not in the position that I want to be in. But I refuse to be a victim. I don't blame it on anybody. It's nobody else's fault. It's no other race's fault. It's not the government's fault. It's nobody's fault but mine that I'm not a millionaire yet. But we have people every day blaming everybody else, giving excuses, making excuses and blaming everybody else for the position that they're in. And it's nobody's fault but yours. We need to stop blaming our situations on everybody else. He said that 1/3 of them are inherited. That still leaves 2/3 of these people that got it out the mud that were self-made. Most of them didn't graduate from college, so we have to stop using that as an excuse and just get to the grind. I want to be a part of this class of people that they're talking about, the stealthy wealthy. So let's continue the video, see what else they're talking about.
And today, they don't live on the coasts. They tend to live somewhere in the middle of the country. There's even a name for this type of success coined by Professor Zadar. They're called the stealthy wealthy. Or, as a book first published in 1996 called them, the Millionaires Next Door. The authors of that book, Thomas Stanley and William Danko, a compelling takeaway from that book was that many of the millionaires profiled were not doctors, lawyers, or executives, but skilled tradesmen and small business owners. And you could say that that book has aged well. Its authors found that a significant portion of millionaires were self-employed in what might be considered blue-collar or middle-market industries. Think plumbers, think electricians, contractors, or pest control operators. These individuals often built modest businesses over time. They exercised strict financial discipline and reinvested profits rather than indulging in lifestyle inflation. Unlike high-income professionals who sometimes live paycheck to paycheck in high-status neighborhoods, these tradesmen lived well below their means. They avoided debt. They focused on wealth accumulation rather than status signaling.
One, The Millionaire Next Door is a highly recommended book. My top financial books have changed over time because I used to listen to the gurus about using a lot of debt and things like that. But after what I went through in 2023, and for those of you who don't know my story, I was an owner operator in 2023. I was also getting into real estate, and I pretty much lost it all, and I grinded my way back up to where I am now, which arguably is a better position than I was then, because even though I live on my truck, I'm getting income that I get to pretty much save it all. I'm using this channel to not only talk about blue-collar businesses and using blue-collar business to get to the next level, but I'm also showing you and living it in real time. That's what these vlogs are about. But back to The Millionaire Next Door. The Millionaire Next Door is a great book. And like he said, it talks about that most of the people who's rich in your neighborhood more than likely are going to be the plumbers, the HVAC people, the electricians, the construction workers, the truck company owners. These are the abundantly wealthy people, the people that make up the majority, because most of these people are also baby boomers. Baby boomers hold most of the wealth in America, and I think it's because most of them did blue collar type work. If you disagree with me, put it down in the comments below. But that's my opinion. Back in those days, most of the work was industrial blue collar type of work, and baby boomers hold most of the wealth in America. And so that's, like I said, that's a highly recommended book. Another book that I would actually recommend that I don't think that they're going to talk about on here is somebody that I did not like at first, and that's Dave Ramsey. For the average American who's in debt and needs to get out of debt and thinking about investing and learning about financial literacy, The Total Money Makeover and The Millionaire Baby Steps are two books that you should definitely check out. If you need to learn the fundamentals, or even if you need a refresher on the fundamentals, that's what you need to do. Like he said, most of these people lived under their means, invested well, and became wealthy. Long-term mindset, slow cooker mindset, not microwave. Create a small emergency fund. Get out of whatever debt you in, pour all of your money into getting out of debt, then increase that emergency fund, then max out all of your contributions, Roth IRA, IRAs, 401ks, and all of that jazz. Max out all of those, open up a brokerage, invest in the S&P or SCHB, all of these different type of ETFs. And if you want to dabble in speculation, such as choosing long-term stocks, educate yourself and do that. But that's the real path. Not taking out a whole bunch of debt and trying to gamble everything on one deal or on one stock or on one trade. That's not the way. This is the real way, and this is the way that I'm going to start preaching for people to do. I went to trucking school. It cost me $3,000, around $3,000, I think, maybe a little bit more, a little bit less or whatever, but it was around that amount. And I went for 3 weeks. They have trucking schools that are cheaper, that last for 10 weeks, but I didn't need that because I drove in the Army before, so I knew I didn't need that much more training. After 3 weeks, the first company I did, guess what? They did tuition reimbursement, so they paid the whole thing back. So technically, I went to trucking school for free. And then I went from making $200 to $500 at fucking 2 men in a truck doing heavy-ass furniture to making $900 to $1,100 a week my first year. And then it decreased $1,400, $2,000, $2,500, then became an owner-operator and was making even more after that. I was making six figures within my third year. Some people do it even faster. The last partner I had that was teaming with me was 25 years old. Shouts out to Tony if you're watching this. He was 25 years old making $2,500 a week. You know what I'm saying? That's $10,000, and we were 1099, so he was responsible for his taxes, which I, kind of let him know what to do on that, how much to put to the side. But that was $10,000 a month for a 25-year-old. There's other 25-year-olds graduating college or getting into college. Some people go to college late, some people graduate early, but they're getting out with a lot of debt, $30,000, $60,000, $100,000, sometimes even more. I've heard crazy numbers. I've never been to college, so I don't know. But they're going to college and they're getting out, and some can't even find jobs. Or they get out after all 4 to 10 years of college, depending on what you're going for, and they are not making six figures the first year out of school. And eventually they end up making more than some in trades, but that also depends on how far or how much the tradesmen took on. Because like you said, if you start their own business, if they start their own business and they're owning 2, 3, 4, 5, 30 trucks, you might still not be competing. There's truck owners who make more than doctors. There's plumbing company owners who are multi-millionaires. There's people out here making 9 figures, $100 million or more off of blue-collar businesses. There's one guy I ran across that owns a private equity fund, which is what I want to do, and buys blue-collar businesses, and he makes $600 million a year, and that's an old video. He might be at a B now, $1 billion. There's another guy I was watching the other day who owns A1 Garages. They fix garages. His company makes $200 million a year. So blue-collar is where it's at to me. Let's keep on listening.
As we discussed here recently, there's an overdue return now at play to teaching some of the trade skills to high school students rather than a continuation of the college for all mindset. Hopefully that will lead to more blue-collar workers getting to the 1%. So, graduates of the class of 2025, go forth, strive to establish a medium-sized regional business, seek to deliver goods and services, and you will prosper. Joining me now is Owen Zidar, professor of economics at Princeton. Dr. Zidar, why hasn't this registered with the popular consensus?
Thanks for having me. That's a great question. And I think one of the biggest misconceptions for graduates is that the way you get rich is by earning high wages. And that's just not true in the data, as you said, when you look at the very top.
Is it a culture thing? I mean, I can't think of too many that get all the attention in the media, in pop culture, music, film, TV shows that fit the bill you and I are describing, like the guy who's pulling up the carpet, in elementary schools and making a fortune because they need a lot of carpet and they got a lot of schools.
Now, some is cultural. I think some it's just really hard to know who's wealthy. Wealthy people don't answer surveys, and so you have to rely on who you see in the news and some investigative reporting, but it's hard to get a systematic take of what's going on. I think one of the easiest ways to see it is to ask yourself, who's the richest person in your high school? And almost always the answer is going to be something like one of these beverage distributors, or someone, like in St. Louis, the Tracy family is a food redistributor. And, these companies can make hundreds of millions of dollars, and, they just don't show up on anyone's radar.
Now, let's be real. Blue collar work isn't sexy. I'm gonna make it sexy though. The blue collar cowboy is here to make blue collar work sexy. My homeboy sent me a video the other day about the average man, and it was a study from some scientists, and they went over the real statistics of what the average man is, and it was around 5'9", around 215, 220, 21% body fat. It went over their bench press, deadlift, and squat numbers, and all of them was in the ones. It was like 150, 120, 160, something like that. And it was so that you could judge and see if you really are above average man. So they created a program of where you could put your inputs of everything that fits the bill for you and see if you're above average or not. Now, you know what I'm saying? I know I'm above average when it comes to, fitness and all of that. I bench press 270. Last time I was in the gym, I bench press 275, I squat 315, and I deadlift 405. And that's still not impressive compared to some of the people I surround myself with. So I know I'm above average in that range. But what pissed me off was when I was taking the survey, according to your job title, they ranked you high, middle, or low. And guess what the lowest tier was? Tradesman. But why? Why is it tradesman higher on the list? Because it's not sexy? I seen an interview with a guy, Jay Waller, and he said he was on a date with a woman, and she was talking about how she dated this tech guy, and she was going over like how much money he made, not realizing Jay Waller was a multi-million-dollar man from building metal buildings. He was in construction, and he had firms all over the United States. Those are the things that's highly misled. He said, you tell a girl that you build metal buildings for a living, depending on the type of girl, she might look at you and think nothing of it, or, might think that you don't have any money. That is the perception that I'm here to change. I want to really educate people on what blue collar and trade work can offer you if you keep your head down and do things the right way. Let's get back to the video.
I made reference to the yacht and the private jet data. What did you look at and what did you find?
So, we have a sense from looking at the whole population of who's wealthy, but it's hard to identify them in other data sets. And so one of the ways to do it is to say, look, if you have a private jet, you're probably considerably wealthy. Now, some people don't, who are very wealthy don't fly jets. They drive a Volvo and have a nice, quiet life. But some show up in these data, and it's amazing. We found dozens of car dealers all over the country, in Indianapolis, you name it, who show up in these data. There's a guy, for instance, in the Boston area named Herb Chambers, who owns a couple really large yachts, and he's not even in the top 20 of the biggest auto dealers in the country.
So think about that for a second. A man that's not even in the top 20 of owning car dealerships has multiple yachts. That's wild. Now me, I wouldn't buy a yacht. I would probably buy a private jet first before I would buy a yacht. But more than likely, I wouldn't buy either one of them. I would just rent them if I was rich enough to do it, because unless it made sense. Like if you're getting speaking gigs every day in different countries, then yeah, it probably makes sense for you to buy a private jet. But they got like Uber for jets now. But anyway, to know that a man like that can get to those places lets you know that blue collar is the way to go, or at least an alternative for you to get to where you need to go. And it's a cheaper route. You know what I'm saying? Like, it don't cost as much up front. And that's what we need to get to. And that's what and like I said, that's what I'm here to show. That's what I'm here to talk about like this, but also show from the vlogs. I want y'all to see the grind. That way the people that's been following me from when I first started this, showing my trucking journey, to be able to say, I was there when he first started living on his truck. Now look where he is. And that's gonna be the proof that you can become very wealthy from blue collar work. Let's get back to the rest of this video.
Dr. Zadar, final question. Do your students get it? You're a professor of economics at Princeton. In the Ivy League, do you sense that your students understand, hey, maybe there's a future for me in, I'll quote The Graduate and date myself, plastics or recycling, garbage. I want to go to Princeton and be an auto dealer. I want to go to Princeton and I want to rip up carpet from the elementary school.
I'm doing my best to spread the gospel. In fact, I was meeting with somebody yesterday who reached out to me after he saw the Wall Street Journal story because he wants his 27-year-old daughter to get the gospel, so to speak. I think one of the issues is that, if you want to go and find some of these companies, they're not all in San Francisco and Brooklyn, and you need to have a broader sense because they really are everywhere in the country. And my hope is that, people will realize you can have a really good life if you own some of these companies. They can return much more than if you're reporting to someone else as a salaried worker.
Right. I want to own an HVAC business in Mississippi. Path to success. Thank you, Dr. Zadar. I find it fascinating. I look forward to your book.
HVAC, plumbing, trucking, all these blue collar trade type companies are the type of companies I'm trying to buy in my private equity company on down the line. So follow me on my journey as I go there. I hope y'all enjoying these videos. Comment down below and let me know what you think. Are you in any blue collar trades? If so, which ones are you in? And let me know what you think about all this. And like I said, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, support the channel. At this point, I'm at 552 subscribers. I'm more than halfway to getting monetized, and I can't wait. This has been a long time coming for me. For those who've been following me for a while, I've been doing this for a minute, on and off, procrastinating. Like I said, my fault. So I appreciate y'all support. See y'all on the next video. Keep on trucking.